Texas is suing New York-based doctor for allegedly prescribing abortion pills through telemedicine to patient from here in Lone Star State. Now, the lawsuit is believed to be the first challenge to laws designed to shield doctors in states with abortion protections from legal challenges elsewhere. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is accusing Dr. Margaret Daly Carpenter of violating Texas law by prescribing abortion pills to a 20-year-old pregnant patient here in Collin County, Texas. Now, the lawsuit filed in Collin County late yesterday is seeking up to $250,000. Texas is one of the more than a dozen states enforcing near total ban on abortion since the Supreme Court eliminated federal constitutional protections for abortions in 2022. Carpenter is the co-medical director and co-founder of Abortion Coalition for Telemedicine, an advocacy group that seeks to expand access to telemedicine abortion across the United States. The Collin County woman took the 2-drug regimen for the medications for abortion. She went to the hospital due to hemorrhaging and severe bleeding, and had been around 9 weeks pregnant, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit didn't name her name. Paxton said, in Texas, we treasure the health and lives of mothers and babies. And this is why out-of-state doctors may not illegally and dangerously prescribe abortion-inducing drugs to Texas residents. That lawsuit was filed late yesterday and reported on today. 2 other stories above and beyond our Dronegate story. Nancy Pelosi is hospitalized after sustaining injury during Luxembourg trip. She was with a bipartisan delegation. She's 84 years old, took a fall. We don't know the extent of her fall. Haven't seen video of that. But it's reported that she's in the hospital and could be receiving surgery soon. We don't know on exactly what limbs and for what. That news will continue over the weekend. The shooter of the United Healthcare CEO, Luigi Mangione, his mother has come out and said that she, for the better part of a year, he went AWOL. He was totally off the grid, and she was searching for him for a better part of a year. Big national stories like that are horrific and very, very bad and sad. We always find out after the fact, after all the investigations, big school shootings, big events like that. We always find out after the fact that there were many opportunities for people to step up and to intervene to avoid those problems from happening. We're going to see that again here. That's my opinion. Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. We're talking about Dronegate tonight. The story on Dronegate is there are drones flying across the northeast part of the United States. Our government is telling us it's not a big deal. Our government's saying it's not us. Our government's saying we don't know who it is. Secretary Mayorkas, Homeland Security, was on CNN a little while ago and told Wolf Blitzer there's nothing he can do, and that's because the Secretary of Homeland Security doesn't have the authority to do anything about it. So he's passing the buck. Because people are ignoring it, because people are saying it's not a big deal, because people are saying it's not a threat. I saw a video earlier, shot tonight, of a person going outside and taking a gun and using those drones like skeet shooting, target practice. None of the bullets were connecting, but they were outside shooting at them. I don't know what kind of gun it was, but it wasn't just this little 22 or something, but it was a pretty significant gun trying to shoot the drones down. We're going to continue to see more of that. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not encouraging it. I don't like to see that because what goes up goes down. But in the end, what's happening is when the government doesn't hear us, when it's government of the people and by the people, right? And when our government doesn't take what we feel is serious enough, we act on our own. Hence the election, and Trump is the next president. Speaking of President Biden has not been seen. Nobody knows. Haven't seen him. Haven't heard from him. at a time when I believe the President of the United States not only has to be the commander-in-chief, he's got to be the comforter-in-chief. This is a time for the president to speak up and share his thoughts on what he knows and what our government's doing to protect us. The lack of communication is telling, and it's scary. The reason people are up in arms on the drones is because drones are no longer just toys, they're weapons of war. And that's got people spooked. So my question to you is, what's your opinion? What do you think? Where do you think they're from? Who's behind it? What's it all about? I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. My phone number is 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Let's talk to Brian and Burnett. Brian, thanks for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. What's your opinion? What's your perspective here?
My opinion on it is that it's more than likely Chinese that are behind the drone efforts. And the reason why I say that is because through the balloon stuff and all of the information hacking, internet-wise, technology stuff and all that, there's never been any ramifications against them for any of that, even though we know they've done it. And then also, you also kind of have to follow the money. I truly believe that Joe Biden and many people in the current administration have been paid by the Chinese for various things. And they're going to let it ride till they get the payoff.
Brian, thanks for calling. I appreciate your opinion on that. Thanks for weighing in. 800-288-9227 is the phone number, 800-288-WBAP. I saw a post on Reddit earlier that scared the bejesus out of me. This makes sense. I don't know that I agree with it. I'm not, because I really don't know what it is. But this guy says, he said, 25-year radar operator here for a major agency. Just thought I'd let you know what has been going on these past few weeks. This is on Reddit. The guy says, the drones are part of a military drill being conducted by the Space Force. Everything is on a need-to-know basis, which is why there's so much confusion. What gets me concerned and why I had to make this post is that something big is about to go down. Said I happen to know that there are additional full lockout drills that are scheduled to take place between now and Christmas Eve. These operations involve the full turnover of all radar and radio and aircraft communications to the military for several hours at a time. That was up on Reddit today. No validity to it. I don't know who it's from. It could have been made up, imaginary. But I tell you, that sounds as legitimate to me of a possibility as anything. I want to hear your perspective. 800-288-9227 is my phone number. My buddy Garrett Tarango, my producer and partner in crime, will take your call. And we'll talk to you next. We got two open phone lines, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc on News Talk 820 and FM 93.3 WBAP. On July 2nd, the company I work for during the day, it's a big company, we mailed invoices to a customer across town. I'm talking 12 miles away, 15 miles away. Invoices, put them in the mail. Like most companies, put all the invoices into a big manila folder, big envelope, sealed it, put a big label on it, mailed it to them. Unfortunately, it was an old mailing address because the company had moved and our company was not informed of that. That was July 2nd. Yesterday, that envelope was returned. 5 months later. 5 months ago that was mailed. 5. Why does the U.S. Post Office, where does that go? We mailed it 5 months ago, July 2nd. It gets returned to us undeliverable because of bad address yesterday, 5 months later. Why? Where the hell was it? How does something sit somewhere in the U.S. Postal Service system for 5 months. When you hear people talking about voting by mail, when you hear states talking about voting by mail and mailing ballots, that should scare the bejesus out of you. Because my story is a real story. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm telling you straight from the heart, man. My company, the business I'm in, day to day, day in, day out, my regular full-time job, we mailed invoices in an envelope to a company 15 miles away, July 2nd. They got returned yesterday as undeliverable because of bad address. Where was that envelope for 5 months? Scary to think that mail's sitting out there for 5 months. Is it possible you're getting mail, supposed to get mail, invoices, your bills, your mortgage statement, insurance bill, or some other bill that if you don't pay, you're going to lose your, how about water bill, electric bill, gas bill? Doesn't come, you don't get it, doesn't get paid, they can potentially turn it off. That's a problem. U.S. Postal Service, that's a major failure. You've got to do better. There's no reason in the world someone should mail something and it sit around for 5 months before it gets returned. Unacceptable. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. We're talking about Dronegate. Dronegate's going on. You heard me just share a story about what one person on Reddit said. Remember, we now have 6 branches to the military, right? You got Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and now the Space Force. Post on Reddit said it's a Space Force testing drones, a military initiative that is top secret that nobody knows. I could shoot holes in that. My holes in it are this. If it truly is the military, my gut feel tells me the military would do it in a very remote area like Area 51. They would not do it over top of a largely populated area that would make the country go, what the hell is it? Because it would create panic like it is. And the reason it creates panic is because drones are now, they're no longer just a toy, they're weapons of war. So when we see a drone used in Syria for overthrowing the government, when we see drones used between Ukraine-Russia war, and then we hear drones and see video and pictures of it over a country with no explanations, and our government doesn't seem to care about it, you're going to have some panic. I want to hear your thought, your perspective. What is it? You heard mine. I want to hear yours. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Stephen from Lake Worth. Thanks for sitting on hold there for a few minutes. I appreciate it very much. What's your theory on this, Stephen?
Yeah, Jeff. Thanks for having me on tonight. I would say my theory is it's the Chinese for sure, and the government knows about it, and they don't want to say anything because they're trying to figure out exactly what the Chinese are up to. But if you go to military.com, this has been happening not just in New Jersey, but in California, in Virginia, and it's around all of our bases, even the bases over in Germany, even the bases over in the UK. And military.com has got some info from some military sources where they've actually caught some of these people that are flying these drones, and they've all been Chinese. So if you look at who stands the most by losing to have President Trump in office come January, besides the deep state and the cabal, would be the Chinese. And of course, they're hand in hand. So I'd venture to say that the Chinese are doing just exactly what the Japanese did to us before World War II, is they're gathering information, and they probably intend on hitting us with drones before the inauguration to actually try to disrupt it, I imagine. But that's my theory.
Stephen, thank you for calling. I appreciate you weighing in on that because I want to hear as many opinions as I can to see what your perspective is. I'm curious what the temperature of the room is right here in North Texas, what your thoughts are on who's behind the drones. Let's go to Gregory from South Lake. Gregory, good to talk to you again, my friend. How are you?
Hey, good buddy. First of all, I don't think these are U.S. sniffer drones. The U.S. uses helicopters to sniff for chem bio and loose nuke kind of situations. There are a bunch of these helicopters positioned around the country. They fly very, very tight patterns. So it would be like you'd see the helicopter come over. If they were flying one over your house, it would probably pass over your neighborhood 3 or 4 times within a couple of hours. Okay, they fly very, very tight patterns. And
so, what do you think they are, Gregory? What's your perspective?
I suspect that this is Chinese, and I'll give you a different take on what I think they might be doing. They might be sniffing networks, looking for exposures, or they may be downloading into Chinese hardware like Huawei Telecom or any other. There's Chinese-made hardware in our electrical grid. They could be downloading stuff into those for to cause an outage at some point in time. There has to be some kind of mothership or maybe a submarine offshore or a couple of submarines offshore that are doing this. The fact that the U.S. has been dark on information about this, I wouldn't believe the Reddit post that you read.
I wouldn't either.
But and I agree with you that the U.S. would not run a top secret operation or test over a populated area. Now,
No way.
There was supposedly a drone crash in New Jersey. I can't remember quite where it was. That place begins with an H, but it was in New Jersey near a mall.
Into someone's house. I saw that.
Yeah, it was about 10 hours ago, and there's been no further reports broadcast about that.
Isn't that amazing?
So, yeah,
Gregory, I gotta hit a bottom of the hour break. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you calling, man. Thank you very much. On the other side of I gotta hit bottom hour news. On the other side of this story about Dronegate and all the conspiracy theories that it could be China ties back to something I talked about 48 hours ago. I want to tell you what that was because it really ties back to this, and I gotta theorize on that to say, are they connected? I'll tell you what I'm talking about right after the news. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. It's Dronegate, and it's going on in the northeastern portion of the United States, New York, New Jersey, with dozens of drones having been spotted up over a populated area over the last 2 weeks or so. And it's really alarming. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and my thought on that is it could be a couple scenarios. A couple things that stick out is either it is our government, and our government is behind these drones, and they're lying to us, or it may not be the government. And if it's not the government, and maybe they don't know about it, that's a problem too. Or it's not our government, and the government knows what's going on, and they're lying about it. All three of those scenarios are bad. All three of those scenarios are wrong. As an employer, if I had an employee who, let's change the language here, the lingo a little bit, but either it could be the government who is behind the drones, and they're lying to us. Well, if I had an employee doing something within the workplace environment and lying to me about it, I'd fire him. What if it isn't the government and the government has no clue who it is? Let's change the language. If I had an employee that their area of responsibility was being compromised and they had no clue about it and it had been going on for a couple weeks and that much of a damage or damning to my company, I'd fire them. The third scenario is it's not our government doing this. They're not involved with it. They do know what's behind it, who it is, and what's going on, and they're lying to us, just giving us the bird. Well, if that were an employee, who was knew what was going on but lying to me, giving me the bird, I'd fire him on that. All three of those scenarios are bad. I'll tell you in a couple minutes, about 6 minutes, another perspective on this with regard to a story I did earlier this week that I think is very telling and pretty important, and they may tie together on that. But first, I want to get to the phones, 800-288-9227. Eric from Arlington called in. Eric, thank you for calling. You're on the Chris Crock Show. My name is Jeff, Westside Jeff.
Okay, thank you, sir. One thing, why do we need the federal government to do anything about this? There's 4 or 5 different states involved. Why don't the governors of these states, or at least one of the governors, step up and do something about them? Take them down, find out what they are, where they're from, etc.
I believe, Eric, it would be a jurisdictional thing with regard to federal government. I don't think it's something that a governor could legally get involved in. I don't believe. I may be off in that. That's where I'd have to really dig deep into that one. Be interesting to hear from some of our listeners, their perspective on that.
Well, they are violating state airspace.
Is it state airspace or is it federal airspace?
That's
I understand it's going on in the state, and that's one of the challenges with governing is the different jurisdictions that come into play with this. What's your perspective? Do you think it's okay for a governor to do that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I don't think that Governor DeSantis in Florida or Governor Abbott in Texas would let such a thing go on for so long. We do have our own state Air National Guard.
You know what's interesting about that, and you mentioned Abbott and DeSantis. It'd be interesting if it happened here in Texas or over in Florida, how those governors would respond to it. I mean, when you think about New York, it's a Democratic governor, and New Jersey's a Democratic governor, and Maryland's a Democratic governor. So it'd be interesting to see if you had a Republican governor, a hawk, a pit bull. Be interesting to see what Kristi Noem up in South Dakota. Been interesting to see what would happen if it were there, right?
For sure.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for calling, Eric. I appreciate it very much. I'd be curious to hear from listeners that might have a perspective on that. Eric says, why didn't one of the governors do something about it and shoot the damn thing down or go after it? I'm not sure the law. I don't have time while I'm talking to read up on it to see the jurisdiction, but I think it's a federal thing. I mentioned a moment ago that this ties back to a story I did earlier in the week, and maybe they're connected and maybe they're not. But the story goes like this. It was a week ago today that a federal appeals court, so last Friday, ruled that the TikTok can be banned in the United States over national security concerns. That's what they said. It's a national security concern. Now, that upholds a federal law requiring the popular social media app to shed its Chinese ownership to keep operating. Now, more than half of our calls tonight, 70% of them, I'm guessing, I haven't looked back to them, but the majority of them have said the Chinese are behind this. Chinese government and the Chinese CCP is behind what's going on with these drones. Let's assume for a second there's some validity to that. And there might be. I don't know. A week ago today, a federal appeals court ruled that TikTok can be blamed or banned in the U.S. over national security concerns, upholding the federal law requiring popular social media app to shed its Chinese ownership to keep operating because of danger to the American people. It's a national security threat. Now, 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit said Congress has the power to take action against TikTok to protect U.S. interests. Now, the ruling rejected a First Amendment challenge brought by the app and several of its users who argued the ban was unconstitutional infringement on free speech. So, what it's saying is the U.S. has the ability to go to TikTok and ban it across the U.S. because of the national security threat. And our government's been telling us for a while the national security threat is China. So if these drones have something to do with China, why is TikTok so bad, but these drones, not so bad for the government to do something? My thought on the whole TikTok thing is this. What does the government know about TikTok that they've not shared? What do they know? What do they have? Why does the U.S. government want to ban TikTok? Because it's Chinese owned. Is there really a significant national security threat? And if so, what is that danger? And how's that different than any other Chinese threat of things made in China but sold in the U.S.? One of the biggest Chinese produced items that is a massive seller in this country is iPhones. So if TikTok's so dangerous because of gathering information, couldn't iPhones do the same? So to the theorists that the drones have something to do with China, hell, if China's that bad that we have to ban TikTok, then China's that bad we need to get to the bottom of the drones and get rid of them. I'd like to hear your perspective on that. 800-288-9227. The phone number is 800-288-WBAP. What's your perspective on the drones, Dronegate? Where are they coming from? Who's behind it? Is it our military? Is it the U.S. government? Is it just a bunch of kids trying to get some attention? One person called earlier and said it's a technology company trying to demonstrate across this country the power of their drone system. If so, they're going to get in trouble for it. Many of you think it's the Chinese or a foreign entity. I'd love to hear your thought because the government's not talking about it, and it's a real concern. 800-288-WBAP is the phone number, 800-288-9227. Got to hit a quick break on the other side of this, about 3.5 minutes. We'll continue with your phone calls about Dronegate. Who's behind it and what's their motivation? I want your perspective. You've heard my opinion. I want to hear yours. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Coming up in 15 minutes, I'll have an update on the murder assassination of the CEO for United Healthcare and the latest on that story, perspective from Luigi Mangioni's mother. Also, Texas sues New York doctor. Got a story about that. And Nancy Pelosi in the hospital. I'll tell you about that in about 15 minutes. We're talking about the Dronegate. I'm calling it Dronegate, and that is what's going on around the Northeast area corridor of the United States. Drones flying, and nobody's taking credit for it. It's been going on for about 2 weeks, and it's got people on edge. And the reason it's got people on edge is because drones are no longer just toys. They are weapons of war. And when we see drones used to overthrow Syrian leadership in the last 2 weeks, when we see drones used in Ukrainian-Russian war, when we see drones used on video footage between the Palestinians and Jews, it kind of makes you a little nervous. Makes Americans nervous when there are drones, that many drones flying around their home and their residence and the areas in which they live, highly populated areas. And ain't nobody talking about it because nobody knows anything about it. And Director of Homeland Security Mayorkas on CNN just earlier tonight with Wolf Blitzer said, nothing we can do. It's not under our. We don't have the authority to deal with it, and it's not a big deal. That's. Thank God this administration is going bye-bye. And we got a new one coming in. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. We took a caller a moment ago, said, why don't the governors get involved? I'm not sure the answer to that. And I asked if you've got any answers to that because I don't know the airspace responsibility and who has jurisdiction. So I asked for some input. Philip from Tipple, you want to weigh in on that. Thank you for calling and offering your opinion, Philip. What's your thought?
Thank you. I was just verifying online for some sources, and the FAA does, regulate airspace and landing and takeoff, but it says the states under the federal altitude limit, which is anything below 1,000 feet, but states have a right to access to the airspace. So any aircraft are unidentified in that case. It's how should I say that? It's they haven't been authorized access, so then they have a right to. It can be seen as a threat, so they have a right to protect themselves.
And Philip, my understanding, I don't know how deep you got in this. My understanding is the FAA, anything above 400 feet has to be cleared by the FAA. I know from a broadcaster's perspective that your tower. This is interesting for you to know that if your broadcasting tower is under 200 feet, it doesn't have to have lights on it, and you don't have to paint it. But if it's 200 feet or more, you have to have lights on it and have to paint it on a regular basis. So I think it's 400 feet is the clearance for FAA. Am I off on that? Does that sound correct to you?
What I just came across said 1,000 feet, but even at that's surprising. You said that the tower's at 200 feet. This raises a question, and I thought to me that there should be more regulations just regarding drones, because flying, at 200 feet, even though that all aircraft should be reporting to air towers and identifying themselves, but man, without any paint or lights, something could hit those.
Yeah.
200 feet low.
There are other legal implications around drones that you're not allowed to fly them within X amount of distance from airports, energy sites. There's restricted spaces you can't have drones. So there's already some of those, but I'm not familiar with those because I'm not a drone guy myself.
That they're more than likely are in violation of already.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess it was on the news, or was I don't know where I heard it just a minute ago, that saying that it's amazing that this has been out for 2 weeks and we haven't heard a peep from our president or vice president.
Nope.
And Trump saying, well, shoot him down.
Shoot it down.
It's like he's the speaker. He's the representation of the people of America.
Damn right he is. Damn right he is.
I can't think of a logical or any answer that's a good one.
I'm with you. Philip, thank you for calling, and thank you for looking that up. I appreciate it. That's Philip from Temple. Matt from Sherman, you're on with Westside Jeff.
Yes. So my question is, because I live on a 400-acre ranch out here, and I can guarantee you if one of these drones came over my airspace inside of my ranch, I would take it down. There's no question about it. And I do understand that there would be an impact, and I'd have to deal with that. But I wouldn't be asking those questions in the time. If I perceived it as a threat, it would be taken care of. So why is this something that nobody wants to take action on?
That's a really good question. I don't have the answer to that.
It's not hard to take them down.
That's part of the problem, by the way, and why this country is really reacting the way it is. And again, what's interesting about this, Matt, is it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's not like you turn on Fox News and the Republicans are all saying one thing. Then you go to CNN or MSNBC and the Democrats are saying the opposite. You go up and down the dial, no matter which network it is, and you got both Republicans. I saw Cory Booker, a Democrat, literally just get angry over it on the news. And Blumenthal, Senator Richard Blumenthal, I've seen several senators and congressmen on both sides of the aisle sharing the same frustration.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where I'm at, because in my perception and the way I see it is this wouldn't be an issue. If it's in my airspace, I'm going to take care of it. I'm not going to wait around. I am the person that's accountable for assuring that the safety for the people I'm around is going to be accounted for and it's going to be taken care of. And if there's something to deal with afterwards and there's airspace and politics and all that, then we can deal with that. But in the meantime, I'm going to assure that the people I'm responsible for are going to be safe and taken care of.
Matt, I'm with you. I'm out. Thank you for calling. Thank you for listening. If I'm out in your 400-acre area, out in the rural community, and we see those drones, and I'm with you, I'm like, Matt, grab some guns. It's skeet shooting practice, man. People pay big money for that. Let's go.